They say the scariest stories are the ones that actually happened. But what if the truth is darker than anything fiction could imagine? What if the person sitting next to you lived through something no one else would believe? Welcome to Midnight Truths, where every tale you're about to hear has been whispered, recorded, or confessed by someone who swears it really happened. These aren't just ghost stories. These are reports, warnings. Some were sent anonymously. Some were buried in old police files, and some, they were never meant to be found. But now you're here and they're waiting to be heard. If you have the courage to dive deeper into the disturbing and the unexplained, make sure you subscribe to Midnight Truths. You won't want to miss what's coming next, but be careful. The more you listen, the harder it is to forget. Let's move to our first story. It's called The Man in the Crawl Space. I moved into the house on Hemlock Road in September, thinking it would be the quiet I needed. I'd spent 5 years in the city, constant traffic, screaming neighbors, and the kind of buzz that seeps into your bones. I needed silence, space, somewhere I could write again. So when I saw the listing for the old ranch-style home out in the woods, cheap, isolated, and with a wraparound porch that faced nothing but trees, I signed the papers in a week. The first few nights were exactly what I'd hoped for. The silence was thick, calming, heavy in a way that made sleep come fast. The only sound at night was the occasional wind, creaking trees, or the soft shifting of the house settling on its bones. I started writing again. I started breathing again, but then the noises started. They weren't loud at first. Just little scuttling sounds, like squirrels in the attic, maybe raccoons under the house. I dismissed them. Country house, old structure, it comes with the territory. I ignored it, but within a few days, it became more than scuttling. It became ... movement, and not the random kind. Repeated, deliberate, like someone crawling slowly under the floorboards. From one side of the house to the other, the crawl space, I should mention, runs beneath the entire house. About 3 feet high, sealed off by a metal grate at the far end of the backyard. I glanced at it during my first walkthrough, but never gave it a second thought. I assumed it was sealed. I assumed wrong. The first time I truly felt disturbed was around 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. I'd woken up needing water. As I stepped into the kitchen, the whole house was quiet, dead quiet, until I heard a low thud beneath my feet. Not a random creak, not a pipe, a thud, then dragging. A slow, scraping drag, moving beneath the floorboards. Just a few feet to my left, I froze. I didn't even breathe. The dragging stopped, then resumed, but this time heading toward the kitchen wall, right where the crawl space ended. I backed away slowly, heart hammering in my throat, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I went outside to check the crawl space entrance. The grate was still on, but 2 of the screws were missing, and one corner had been pulled outward, just enough for a grown man to squeeze through if they were determined enough. I tightened it the best I could and called pest control. The guy came out the next day, poked around, and said he didn't see signs of animals. No droppings, no nests, no chew marks. You sure it's not the house settling? He asked. I lied and said yes, but I started keeping a knife by the bed after that. The nights got worse. The sounds more deliberate. I began to hear whispering, faint, barely audible. But there, sometimes it was a name, my name. Sometimes just incoherent murmurs, like someone having a conversation just below the floor. Always around 2 o'clock or 3 a.m., always when the house was dead still. Once, I turned off all the lights and crouched on the floor with my ear pressed to the hardwood. I thought maybe I could catch a voice, record something, prove to myself I wasn't losing it. What I heard made my stomach turn cold. It wasn't speech, it was breathing. Slow, deep, labored breathing, coming from right beneath me. I leapt back, flipped on every light in the house, and sat up with coffee until the sun rose. I didn't go near the crawl space again. I didn't want to, but something changed the following week. The noises stopped. The breathing, the dragging, the whispers. Gone. I should have felt relief. I didn't. I felt watched. That's when I noticed things were being moved in the house. Subtle at first. A coffee mug placed on the opposite side of the counter, a lampshade tilted just slightly, a cabinet left ajar. I kept telling myself I was misremembering. Stress, sleep deprivation, imagination. But one morning I found muddy fingerprints on the inside of the closet door in the guest bedroom. I hadn't opened that closet in weeks. Something was in the house. I did what anyone would do. I called the police, told them I thought someone had broken in or was squatting somewhere. They did a full sweep, even brought a dog, found nothing. They asked if I wanted to file a report, but with nothing stolen and no evidence of forced entry. It was pointless. They left me with a warning to lock everything and call again if anything escalated. I considered selling the place. But who would buy a rural house with a crawl space that possibly housed a lunatic? A few days later, while moving some boxes in the attic, I found a small hatch I hadn't noticed before, set into the attic floor. It was old, rotted around the edges, and sealed with a rusted latch. Curiosity got the better of me, and I forced it open. Inside was a small space, maybe 3 feet deep, and inside that, a notebook. Tattered, water-damaged, the cover long gone. I brought it down and flipped through it. The first few pages were incoherent scribbles, repetitions of words like cold, dark, watching. Then the writing shifted, became legible, organized. Day 14, I heard her voice again. She's here now, above me, I think she knows. Day 29, I can't leave. It won't let me. Every time I try to crawl out, it starts whispering, threatening. My skin burns when I touch the grate. Day 41, I sleep during the day now. It's safer. Nights are loud. It moves with me. Follows me under the house. There were dates on some of the entries, all from over 7 years ago. The last legible entry read, Day 73, she moved in. New footsteps, lighter, she's always. Home, I think it's safer now. As long as I stay quiet. I dropped the notebook and backed away. My hands were shaking. Someone had been, or still was, living in the crawl space. Someone who had gone mad. Someone who thought something else was down there with him. I went to the backyard again. The grate looked undisturbed, but when I knelt down, I saw drag marks in the dirt, fresh ones. Going into the crawl space, I packed a bag that night, drove to a motel 40 miles out, and stayed there for 3 days. I didn't sleep much, just laid there with the lights on and my phone clutched in my hand. Eventually, I returned to the house during the day just to grab more of my things I brought. A crowbar and a flashlight, intending to finally open the crawl space myself and put an end to this. I needed closure. The grate came off with effort. I crouched, took a breath, and pointed the flashlight inside. The beam caught a figure, emaciated, pale, with sunken eyes, crouched just feet away from the entrance, unmoving. His skin was gray, stretched tight. He smiled when the light hit him. Then he crawled backward, fast, into the darkness. I screamed and fell back, dropped the flashlight. When I scrambled to pick it up and shine it inside again, he was gone. I didn't go back. I called the police. Again. Told them there was a person living in the crawl space, possibly dangerous. This time they brought backup dot. They searched for hours. Found nothing. No person. No sign of recent habitation. Nothing but dirt, cobwebs, and the lingering stench of mold. They looked at me like I was either lying or insane. I sold the house for a loss a few months later. I never got the smell out of the guest room. I've since moved into an apartment, 6th floor. No attic, no basement, no crawl space, and yet sometimes around 2 a.m., I still wake up to the sound of dragging beneath the floorboards. Let's move to our second story. This one is called Channel 33 Doesn't Exist. Back when I was 14, the internet was still dial-up in my house. You couldn't be online and talk on the phone at the same time, and YouTube wasn't even really a thing yet. Most of my free time was spent with my best friend Carter. We'd ride bikes, rent horror movies from the local video store, and play around with his dad's old VHS camcorder, making our own ghost shows for laughs. But nothing we ever filmed compared to what we found on Carter's basement TV in the fall of 2003. Carter's basement was the perfect hangout spot: dingy carpet, battered couch, and an old wood-paneled television hooked up to one of those turn-dial cable boxes. It was a clunker, no remote, just 2 big dials, one for channels 2 to 13, and the other for everything above that. It barely worked, but on rainy days or when we were bored, we'd flip through the static to see if we could pick up anything weird. Pirate stations, scrambled porn, foreign news, anything. One night, we were down there eating junk food and flipping through the upper channels. Most of them were just static or the occasional shopping network. But then Carter stopped. He froze, staring at the screen. The dial was set to a channel we'd never seen before. Channel 33 dot. It didn't have a name, just a faint number in the upper left corner of the screen. The picture was grainy, warped like an old tape, but something was definitely broadcasting dot. It was a children's show dot at first. We thought it was some old public access thing. The set looked cheap: cardboard trees, a painted sky backdrop, and 2 puppets. One was a big round head with black button eyes and stringy yarn hair. The other was shaped like a dog but had a flat, human-like face and an unsettlingly wide grin. They weren't doing much, just kind of bobbing around while strange music played. No narration, no dialogue. The whole thing was off. The proportions of the set were weird, too. The puppets were too big for the fake house behind them, and they moved in jerky, unnatural ways. We watched for maybe 3 minutes before the screen suddenly cut to black. Then Static Dot Carter turned to me and asked, "What the hell was that?" We laughed it off, but something about it stuck with us. The puppets, the silence, the way the show felt like it was made by someone who had seen a kid's show once but didn't know what made it work. A few nights later, we tried to find it again. Channel 33 was just static. We assumed it was a fluke. Maybe we picked up a rogue signal, or someone was messing with a broadcast tower nearby. We told some friends about it at school, but no one believed us then. About a week later, I got a call from Carter at 3:40 in the morning. His voice was shaking. "Turn on your TV. Go to Channel 33, now." I told him to shut up and that I was sleeping, but he insisted. "I'm recording it. Just look." So I got up, turned on the TV in the living room, the one hooked to the antenna, and clicked through the channels. Nothing. Then I went up by hand to Channel 33. It was backed out the same show, same puppets. Only this time, they weren't just bouncing around. They were looking at the screen, not moving, just staring. I felt something, like a pressure in my chest, like they were aware I was watching. Then, after maybe a minute, one of them tilted its head, the dog one, and it opened its mouth. No sound came out, but its lips moved slowly, deliberately dotted was mouthing something. I couldn't look away. My heart was racing. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until the screen cut to black again. Then came a soft tone, high-pitched and constant, like the emergency broadcast signal, but fainter. I turned off the TV the next morning. Carter showed me the tape. He'd recorded what he saw, except when we played it back, all that showed was static. No puppets, no set, no sound. He swore he'd seen it. I even wrote down what they said, he told me. He pulled a wrinkled piece of paper from his hoodie pocket. On it was scribbled, "Come back tomorrow. Bring him." I didn't want to believe it. I told him he was messing with me, trying to scare me. But his hands were shaking, and he wouldn't stop looking over his shoulder. Over the next few nights, things got worse that he called me again 2 nights later. This time, he was crying, not like he was scared, like he was ashamed. "They keep showing me things," he said. "I saw my mom. She was in the basement, but her face was wrong. Her mouth was open too wide, and she kept saying, 'Why'd you leave me down here?'" He started talking less at school, then not at all. He looked tired, pale. He told me he could only sleep during the day. Said they watched him through the TV at night. When I went to his house, I noticed he covered all the screens in his room with sheets and duct tape. Even the microwave. One night, I woke up to a buzzing sound. My own TV, the one in my room, had turned itself on. Static. I stared at it for a second, then slowly walked over to turn it off. But as I got closer, I noticed something moving in the static. Not puppets this time, faces. Dozens of faint, warped faces pressed up against the inside of the screen. Their mouths were open. I unplugged the TV and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, Carter didn't show up to school. He never came back. His parents said he ran away. Left a note on his bed that just said, "I'm going back too." The show, I told the cops everything. The channel, the puppets, the voices. They didn't believe me, obviously. Called it a mental health crisis. Said Carter had a history of sleepwalking and hallucinations, but I know what I saw. I know what I heard in Channel 33. It's real. A few months later, I tried again. Just once, I turned the dial, hand shaking, and flipped through the static. Nothing. Channel 33 was gone. Or so I thought, because now I don't need a TV to hear. Them. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed around 3:30 a.m., I hear that high-pitched tone, faint, just outside my room. And when I close my eyes, I see them, the puppets, still staring, still mouthing words I can't quite understand. I don't tell people this anymore. Most think I made it all up. Carter's still gone. His house was sold, and his parents moved. Out of state. But I know the show's still running, and I think just maybe it's looking for a new audience. Asterisk. Let's move to our third story. This one is called The Smiling Woman at the Bus Stop. It happened in late November, around 9:30 at night. Cold, wet, and quiet. I remember that detail because I was staring at the bus schedule, pissed off, realizing I'd missed the last express bus by just 7 minutes. My phone was at 2%, and my portable charger had finally given out. Of course, so I stood there, alone at the old, cracked bus stop near Maple and 6th, debating if I should just walk the 2 miles home in the drizzle or wait for the late local that might never come. I chose to wait. Worst decision I've ever made. The street was mostly empty, save for some blinking streetlights and the occasional car that passed by too fast to notice anyone standing on the sidewalk. Behind the bus stop, there was just a chain-link fence, a field of dead grass, and a half-collapsed billboard for a car dealership. Nothing but open space in every direction. I remember checking the time again. 9:41, and that's when I saw her, across the street, maybe 40 feet away, under the opposite streetlight, a woman. She wasn't there a second ago. I swear it. One moment, the sidewalk was empty. The next, she was just there, standing stiff beneath the light. She wasn't moving, just airing. She had shoulder-length dark hair, pale skin, and was wearing a light pink dress, completely wrong for the weather. But what stood out most wasn't the dress or the fact that she was barefoot. It was her smile. Wide, too wide, stretching across her face like someone had told her to hold a pose long past it was natural. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind that feels like a threat. I stared back, confused. At first, I thought maybe she needed help. Maybe she was hurt or lost, but she didn't move, didn't wave, didn't call out, just stared, still smiling. I looked around. No one else was nearby. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I looked back at her. She was closer, still on the other side of the street, but now, under my streetlight, I hadn't seen her move, hadn't blinked. But somehow, in those 2 or 3 seconds, she'd closed the distance by half. Still standing, still smiling, still watching. I stepped back. "Hey," I called out, my voice catching in my throat. "You okay?" No answer, her head tilted slightly, the smile unbroken. It looked forced, stretched. That's when I noticed something else. Her hands, they were clenched into fists, tight and trembling, like she was using every muscle in her body to keep still. Her shoulders were rigid. Her whole body looked wrong, like she wasn't used to standing up straight, or like she was mimicking it. I took another step back and fumbled for my phone, but it was dead. Just a black screen. When I looked up again, she was on my side of the street, closer, still smiling, my breath caught. I turned and started walking fast, away from the bus stop. I didn't run, not yet. I kept glancing over my shoulder every few steps. And every time I did, she was there, closer, each time, no footsteps, no sound. She never blinked. That's when I started running. Sprinting full speed down the sidewalk, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't look back for a full minute. I couldn't. I was afraid of what I'd see. When I finally did glance over my shoulder, she was gone. I kept running. I made it home about 15 minutes later. Breathless, shoes soaked through, adrenaline still burning in my veins. I locked the door behind me, bolted it, and went from window to window, pulling every curtain closed. Then I sat on the floor of my bedroom, trying to slow my breathing. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. That the stress, the weather, the dead phone, it had all just messed with my head. Maybe it was some random person messing with me. A prank, maybe. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I told a few friends about what happened. They laughed, said it sounded like a creepypasta. One of them even asked, jokingly, "Was she still smiling when she stabbed you?" I laughed too, but it was hollow. Over the next few days, I tried to forget about it. And I almost did until I saw her again, this time in daylight. I was sitting on the bus, heading to class, looking out the window as we passed an intersection. And there she was, across the street, still smiling. Same pink dress, same bare feet. Her eyes locked with mine through the glass. I ducked, heart pounding, and waited until the next stop to get off and walk the rest of the way. My professor said I looked pale. I told him I wasn't feeling well. That night, I didn't sleep. I saw her again 2 days later, outside the coffee shop. Then again, behind a tree near my apartment, always standing, always smiling, never blinking. I told myself to go to the police. But what would I say? There's a smiling woman who keeps appearing near me and vanishing into thin air. They'd either think I was lying or losing it. Maybe I was. Then one night, I woke up to the sound of tapping. 3 taps. Slow, measured coming from my bedroom window. I froze. The blinds were down. I couldn't see out. But I didn't need to. I knew. I waited, holding my breath. Another 3 taps. I got up slowly, knees weak, and grabbed the bat I kept near my bed. Then, in one motion, I yanked the blinds up. Nothing. Just an empty street. Wind. A cat scurrying across the sidewalk. I sighed. Maybe I really was losing my mind. Then I turned around and saw her, standing in the hallway. Mirror. Behind me. Smiling. I swung the bat hard, but it passed through nothing. The mirror cracked. I fell backward, panting, scanning the hallway. It was empty, but on the cracked mirror, drawn into the condensation with a finger, was a message. I liked your smile too. I moved out 2 weeks later, left the city, got rid of my phone, deleted every social account. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just needed her to stop. For a while, she did. But then, a few nights ago, I was waiting for the elevator in my new building, watching the numbers tick down, and there, reflected in the metal doors behind me, was a smile. Asterisk. Asterisk, let's move to our 4th story. This one is called The Tape in the Wall. When my grandfather passed away, he left behind a small 2-bedroom house in rural Michigan. I'd only visited him a few times as a kid, mostly for holidays. He was a quiet man, strange but kind, always kept to himself. My parents described him as complicated, though they never elaborated on what that meant. After the funeral, they asked if I could help clean out the house and prep it for sale. I had just finished a contract job, so I said sure. A few weeks away, in the middle of nowhere, sounded peaceful. It wasn't. The house sat near the edge of a thinning forest. You couldn't see another neighbor's home from the front porch, just fields and trees. Inside, it was like stepping into a time capsule. Old furniture, rotary phones, dusty VHS tapes, an ancient stove that probably hadn't been used in years. Everything smelled like mothballs and mildew. The first 2 days were normal. I spent most of my time going through boxes in the attic and labeling furniture for pickup. But late on the 3rd night, something odd happened. I was sitting on the floor in the guest bedroom, sorting through drawers, when I heard a dull thump. Behind the wall, I froze. It wasn't loud. Just a single, solid thump, like something had fallen inside the wall itself. I waited. Nothing followed. Curious, I tapped the wall back. Hollow. At first, I figured it was maybe a mouse or raccoon in the insulation. The house was old. Rodents made sense. But something about the sound didn't feel right. It hadn't been frantic or random. It had felt. Time. Deliberate. I pressed my ear to the wall and waited. After about a minute, I heard another sound. A faint whirring, mechanical, like an old camcorder spinning up, then it stopped. Dead silence again. That's when I noticed something strange. The wall itself felt warmer. The next morning, I pulled the bed and shelves away from the wall and examined it. Near the baseboard, behind an old bureau, was a thin vertical crack, about 1 foot high, sealed with dried caulk, not natural wear. Someone had patched. I didn't have tools, so I drove into town and bought a small crowbar and flashlight. When I got back, I pried at the seam slowly until the board popped loose. Behind it was a narrow cavity, like a hidden nook inside the wall. And sitting inside, on a small wooden ledge, was a VHS tape. No label, no markings. Just dust and grime. Inside of the cavity was lined with strange black tape, not like electrical tape, but something shinier, almost reflective. The air that came out when I opened it smelled stale and wrong, like a room that had been sealed for too long. Still, I took the tape, resealed the wall, and brought it to the living room. I stared at it for a long time. Something about it felt deeply, profoundly wrong. I knew I shouldn't watch it, but of course, I did. My grandfather still had his old VHS player set up in the cabinet. I slid the tape in, turned on the TV, and hit play. At first static, then faint audio. A hum, low and vibrating, like the sound a refrigerator makes at night. Then a picture. It was a dark room. A single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, swaying slightly. The camera was positioned in a corner, fixed on a wooden chair in the center of the room. The footage was grainy, but not in a distorted way, just old. Worn. About 10 seconds in, a man entered the frame and sat in the chair. It was my grandfather. Much younger, maybe in his 40s. He stared at the camera with a blank expression, like he was waiting for something. Then he began to speak. At first, it was just numbers. Long strings of them. Coordinates, maybe. Latitude and longitude, then timestamps. Dates. Some in the future. Some in the past. October 14th, 1974. 3:17 a.m. August 2nd, 1999. 9:43 p.m. November 22nd, 2026. He kept going. 5 minutes, 10, just numbers and times. He didn't blink once. Then he stopped and began humming. It was the same tone I'd heard at the beginning of the tape. After a minute, he leaned forward and whispered, "If you're watching this, it means you heard it too." I hit stop. My heart was racing. I sat there for a long time, the tape still in the machine, the TV screen frozen. Then I ejected the tape, placed it back in the cabinet, and walked outside into the cold air. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried to convince myself it had been a prank, something he recorded during a mental health spiral. He was a war veteran, maybe PTSD, maybe something worse. But later that night, around 2 a.m., I was lying in bed when the humming returned. Not from the TV, not from the tape. From inside the wall. Same note, same vibration. It was coming from behind the patch where I'd pulled the tape out. I pressed my hand against it. Warm again. This time, I didn't open it. I just sat there, waiting, listening. Then I heard something else. A voice. My grandfather's voice, whispering, "Don't rewind it." The next morning, I went to a local library and searched public records. Deaths, land surveys, anything. I didn't find much about the house. But I did find something about my grandfather. In 1983, he'd been reported missing for 4 days. Found in a field nearly 20 miles from town, dazed and sunburned, with no memory of how he got there. No car, no ID. He was never able to explain it. He refused all interviews. Even threatened reporters who came too close. It was around that time. The report noted that he started becoming reclusive. When I got back to the house, the TV was on. The screen was black, and the tape was sitting in the middle of the floor. I hadn't touched it. The VHS player was open, empty. I walked over, picked it up, and checked it. It had been rewound against the voice's warning, against my better judgment. I put it back in. This time, it started differently. It wasn't my grandfather anymore. It was me. Same chair. Same light. Same camera angle. Me, staring straight ahead, dead-eyed, mouthing the exact same strings of numbers and dates he had, except some of the dates hadn't happened yet, including one just 4 days from now, August 3rd, 2025, 1:13 a.m. I watched myself speak, then lean forward. "If you're watching this, it means you heard it too." I pulled the tape out and smashed it, burned it in a metal trash can behind the shed. But the humming hasn't stopped. It comes every night now, right behind the wall, and I swear it's getting louder. Let's move to our 5th story. This one is called The Last Patient. I used to work as a night shift security guard at a decommissioned hospital on the edge of town. They called it St. Elora's, a once functional psychiatric facility that had been gradually shut down over the last decade. Now, only one wing remained in use, a small hospice unit. reserved for patients with no family or no other options. The kind of people the world had quietly forgotten. It was quiet work. Boring mostly. My job was to patrol the empty hallways, make sure the building didn't get broken into, and occasionally check in with the night nurse, Janice, who worked the hospice floor. St. Alaris was eerie even in daylight. Cracked tile floors, yellowed walls, water-stained ceilings. At night, it felt like the whole building was holding its breath. And something about it never sat right with me. Janice was the only other person I saw regularly. She was in her late 50s, wore thick glasses, smoked too much, and had been working there since the early 90s. She'd seen the building go from a bustling institution to the ghost town it was now. One night, during my rounds, I stopped by her desk like usual. She was staring at the monitors, not blinking. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly, then looked up at me. Her face was pale, lips tight. She gestured toward the hallway behind her. "Room 12, she said. "We got a new one." That struck me as odd. I hadn't seen anyone come in. No ambulance, no transport van. Did they bring him in through the back? I asked. Janice didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No, he showed up, walked in." I asked, raising an eyebrow. She finally looked me in the eye. "He was just there this morning when I came in, lying in the bed, all hooked up. Monitors running, nameplate already printed." I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. "You're messing with me." "I'm not." Her voice was flat. "Go look if you don't believe me." I didn't nod right away. I did another sweep of the east wing, trying to shake the weirdness off. I chalked it up to a new patient I just hadn't seen arrive. Paperwork mix-up. Maybe Janice was tired, maybe I was tired, but something nagged at me. So around 2 a.m., I finally walked down to room 12. The door was cracked slightly. The lights were dimmed. I stepped in. He was lying there, still a stone, beneath the thin white sheets. Elderly, maybe late 70s, emaciated, head shaved, skin paper thin and gray. A heart monitor ticked slowly beside him, and in 4 dripped a clear. Fluid into his arm, but here's the thing, there was no chart at the door. No patient record, nothing. And when I looked closer at the monitor, it wasn't showing a heartbeat, just a flat line. I backed out quietly and went back to the nurse's desk. "There's no pulse." I told Janice. She didn't even flinch. Just stared straight ahead and said, "I know." "What the hell is going on?" I asked. "He's been like that all day." "Then he's dead." "No," she said. "Not exactly. I was done with riddles." I pulled out my radio and called dispatch to report a possible DOE. While I waited for a response, I glanced at the hallway monitor beside her, the one that looped security footage from each room. The feed for room 12 was dark. Just static. Ben, for half a second. The static cleared. And the old man was sitting up in the bed, staring directly at the camera. Then it cut to black. I blinked and looked over at Janice. Her face was ashen. "He doesn't like to be watched." We didn't speak again for the rest of the night. An ambulance never came. The next morning, I checked room 12 again before leaving. The bed was empty. The sheets were folded. The monitor was gone. So was the IV. No sign anyone had ever been there. I chalked it up to exhaustion. Maybe a weird dream. A prank. But the next night, I found Janice in the break room, staring into her coffee. "He's back," she said quietly. "Room 12. I didn't want to go look, but I did anyway. He was there again. Same position, same monitors, same expressionless face. Only this time, his eyes were open and they were completely black. I don't mean dark or sunken. I mean black. Pitch. No sclera. No pupil, just smooth, endless blackness." I stood frozen in the doorway. Then he blinked. And the heart monitor started beeping. I backed away and shut the door. Not hard. Not loud. just enough. When I turned around, Janice was standing in the hallway. You saw it, she said. Not a question, a confirmation. What is he? I asked out, she sighed. He's not on any of our rosters. I checked the logs. Every morning he's gone, and every night he comes back. Always room 12. Always the same. Then why is he here? I asked. She paused, eyes drifting to the ceiling. Then she said, I think he's waiting. For what? She looked me dead in the eye. For you. I quit that night. I didn't give notice. Didn't turn in my keys. I left the badge on her desk, walked to my car, and drove. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was short, just static at first. Then a voice I didn't know, slow, rasping like dry paper tearing. Room 12 is empty now. But not for long. I deleted it. A few nights after that, I started having the dreams. Always the same hallway. Always the same hum of fluorescent lights. I'd walk past the rooms, one by one, until I reached 12. The door would always be slightly ajar, and inside, the bed would be empty. Until I blinked. Then he'd be there, sitting upright. Smiling. I started sleeping with the lights on, then stopped sleeping at all. I told myself I was spiraling, paranoid, maybe a psychotic break, maybe stress. I saw a doctor. Got put on something mild. It didn't help. Then one morning, I woke up and saw something tucked under my apartment door, a hospital bracelet. White, clean, untouched. My name printed on the tag. Under room. It said 12.